I'm very much grateful for the organizers, People Business School, Dr. Venkat Seshaya, Sumaya sir, then my fellow panelists, and ladies and gentlemen. You are studying Masters of Business Administration. Someone said the business of banks is business. So your study and our business, they match very well and they go very well. Today, I would like to speak something about corporate finance and its recent trends in Indian banking industry. As you are going to be a part of corporate sector very shortly from now, it is always better if you know something about the corporate finance as well as the trends in the various industries. It will be coming handy for all. So if you say that knowledge is power, wisdom is winning formula. So you see here, 2010-11 and 2011-12, infrastructure is the major portion of corporate finance assisted by Indian banks. That is 55% in 2010-11 and 49% in 11-12. Again, if you desegregate, infrastructure again power will be having a major share, something around 49% in 10-11 and 44% in 11-12. So this is the project cost in rupees crores. See, 2,15,200 crores in 10-11 and 1,02,900 crores in 11-12. And here there are certain industries which you have seen decline and certain industries you have seen growth. The decline is mainly infrastructure and the textiles. And if you see that hotels and restaurants, food products and chemicals and pesticides, they have grown. Sir is telling, Dr. M.M. Reddy sir was asking how much credit growth. Right now it is around 16 to 17% credit offtake is going on. When we can say that it is not very aggressive, if it touches around 20-23%, you can say the credit is going very well. And we are also having higher interest rate scenario at this moment. If you say that it is around 12%, for most of the industries they are getting at not less than 11 to 12%. Earlier they used to get at around 8%. Industrial growth in July IIP index, if you see, there is a reduction to the extent of 0.1%. Growth only. There is a growth of only 0.1%. So that's why I call it as anemic industrial growth. Only the construction as well as electricity sectors, these three sectors are doing well. Other sectors are not doing well. And there is a decline in exports. Absolute volume wise, if you say in 11-12, we made $254 billion of exports and $352 billion of imports. During the last 5 months, Indian export sector is not doing that much very well. In terms of pharma, IT, information technology, leather industry and marine products. These are the only 4 areas which we are doing very well, and almost all sectors we are not doing well. The reason could be many things. One is, if you see recent global economic slowdown, they are having austerity measures. In the entire Europe, the growth is in negative position. If you see UK, it is already for the last 9 months it is in recession. Even Germany and France also, they are in negative growth experience. US just 2.3% growth rate in GDP. And only BRICS, that is Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa. only countries where there is growth. That is the reason most of the FIIs, foreign institutional investors, are betting on India. If you see China, they are having 7.6. They have been growing for the last 2 decades to the extent of 10 to 12%. And China is also, the growth is muted. So what I am saying is, China as well as India, they have been growing well for the last 1 decade, but now the growth is muted. In India, GDP growth is right now only 5.5%. And if you take Russia, it is just 4%. So, compared to others, we are doing well. That is the reason most of the foreign investors are interested to invest in India. And India, with 1.2 to 1.3 billion population, it is a consumption-led economy. So that is the reason even if we don't export much, we can survive. But for the last 20 years, our exports have been growing very well. So if you don't export, your forex reserves will come down and your growth also will be muted. And here, if you take into this 5.5% growth, you cannot consume full. So you have to export at any cost. And you have two deficits, that is fiscal deficit of the center to the extent of 8% and current account deficit to the extent of 4.2. When India faced BOP crisis, balance of payment crisis in 91, its current account deficit reached 3.2. Now it is 4.2. I think it is 3% under 91. So what I am saying is, even if we have more forex reserves right now to the extent of $300 billion, our current account deficit is very high. So as long as we don't attract good amount of foreign investment, it will be very difficult to finance this deficit. That is the reason Chidambaram and company, they are giving so much importance for attracting foreign direct investment as well as non-debt creating inflows into India. And if you see the capital goods production index, that has come down very well during the last 2 to 3 years. The reason is no entrepreneur is interested to invest in India because there are so many obstacles. There is slowdown not only in the economy, slowdown in the decision making process. No one in the government is working. I am sorry to say this, of course media is also there. I am telling you, for the last 3 years, there is even Kaushik Basu in US, when he was the chief economic advisor of India, he made a comment, if at all you want to take a decision in India with respect to investment, you should take after 2014. That is for the next elections. So what I am saying is, when there is uncertainty, political instability, higher interest rates, and lack of clearances. If you go for environmental clearance, it will be taking years. And if you go for land acquisition, farmers will be there who will be having some bundles and doing strikes. So it will be very difficult for any entrepreneur to come up with an idea and invest thousands of crores. And capital goods industry, output, that is the reason it's coming very low. And you have, for the last 1 year, if you observe US dollar, Indian rupee, as well as Indian rupee versus other currencies, there is a lot of depreciation to the extent of 20%. Of course, now rupee yesterday closed at 53.47. If you take even 44 rupees 1 year back, now 53.47 is almost 10 rupees, around 20% decline. Especially, this will benefit pharma industry where there is export orientation to the extent of 80 to 90%. Likewise, information technology. But not all sectors, like if you take fertilizers, they don't have exports, only imports. So they have to suffer a lot. And maybe some of your siblings who are studying abroad, they have to shell out more. So what I am saying is, the depreciation of rupee has a lot of connotations for many industries. And you have the inflation to the extent of 7.5%, that is sticky, stubborn. It's not coming down. Inflation will hit the heart, especially the common people. Maybe a person who is working in white collar job you may not feel. Even if you say the high-tech city, they may not bargain for vegetables or fruits. If you say one apple equivalent to 50 rupees, will pay and go. But it is very difficult for a common person to pay to bargain. So what I am saying is, recent decision with respect to the diesel price hike of 5 rupees per litre, that also is going to affect this inflation. But it's a bold decision of the government. I'll come back to that. And you have deficient and uneven monsoon. I can say that uneven monsoon is more dangerous compared to deficient monsoon. Why? Because it is not that your monsoon should be not only even, but also it should be sufficient. Why? Because the entire country, wherever fertile land is there, it should receive a certain amount of rainfall, otherwise crops will be affected. In August, there is a deficiency of 16% long period average. Now it has come down to 5%. Nevertheless, most of the rice farmers, they affected most, because in June, July, there was not enough amount of rainfall in most parts of India. Of course, we experienced in Andhra, but Gujarat, Maharashtra, but Northwest belt, they suffered a lot. And you have S&P and other international rating agencies downgraded India. Now from stable to negative outlook because of various reasons. And for the last 20 years, you have been seeing that Indian economy, LPG, that is liberalization, globalization. Yeah. So what I am saying is, after this, you have factors of production: land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. Except land, everything is mobile. Even Thomas Friedman is saying that a person who is working in Bangalore, if he is working as a KPO, he can work for the President of America, because the time zone difference. By the time he completes his speech, and America will wake up, and then he can deliver the speech in New York or San Francisco. So that is the beauty of liberalization. And because of the time zone differences, in the largest English-speaking population in the world, India is thriving on many counts. I'm an optimist. Don't think that I'm giving a pessimistic future or presence. But what I'm saying is, this is the scenario. I will come to the silver lining at the end. This is the rupees in crores. You just have a look at it. During 2009, there was gross advances of the banks, Indian banks, 27,93,572 crores, and it reached 46,55,271 crores in March 2012. Here, growth is very good, no doubt. CAGR may be to the extent of 18 to 19%. But here, the question is, how many advances are good? If you see the gross NPAs, it has reached almost double, 68,000 to 137,102 crores. And again, restructured advances. I don't know how many of you know about restructured advances. Restructuring of advances means restructuring the terms and conditions of the sanction. Suppose you have taken a housing loan to the extent of 10 lakhs for 10 years. But by any means you are unable to repay that particular loan in 10 years, it has to be extended. The tenor has to be extended, say 12 years or 15 years. So that means without affecting the quality of the asset, we are extending the tenor of the loan, especially from the point of view of the banks. So if you see the restructured advances from March 2010 onwards, 97,834 crores to 2,18,068 crores. That means here in March 2010 they exceeded gross NPAs. Gross NPAs means gross non-performing assets. A non-performing asset is an asset for a bank which doesn't generate any revenue in terms of interest or principal. So what I am saying is, this is a drag on the profitability of the bank. if there are gross NPAs, naturally it will affect the profitability and net worth of the bank. So any bank which is having less NPAs is on a better footing compared to other banks. Okay, here if you see from 2010 onwards, they exceeded, that is restricted advances exceeded gross NPAs, 97,834 crores, more than 81,816 crores, and again 106,859, 94,000, 218,137. So what I am saying is, Pustakam Vanita Vittam Parahastam Gatam Gataha Adhava Punarayati Jirnam Rashtancha Khandaseha. This is for your open discussion. Once again I will tell you. I cannot tell the meaning. This is open for podium. Pustakam Vanita Vittam Parahastam Gatam Gataha Adhava Punarayati Jirnam Rashtancha Khandaseha. It will not come fully. It will be mutilated. I'm sorry, I will be taking some more time if you can have some patience. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, there are some industry trends I would like to tell. Leather industry is one of the largest forex earners of India, and this is one of the industries which is getting benefit out of rupee depreciation. But the underlying is most of the exporters based in, most of the export destinations are Germany, France, Spain, Italy, UK, approach US. All these export countries and importing countries, they are bargaining on prices because rupee has depreciated. That is having windfall profit for most of the manufacturers in India. And it is having 3 million employment. You have 2,100 tanneries across India. Tamil Nadu, UP and West Bengal are having a major share to the extent of 60%. And in Hyderabad, we are having a lot of raw material base, hides and skins. And you have in India, the skill and the cheap labor, it is both plus and minus. Why? Because right now it is cheap, but it is going to be very costly very soon, because we are importing globalization. And you have funding constraints because most of the players are unorganized and very small. Bata India Limited is one of the market leaders in this industry, Relaxo and Liberty. And you have very stringent quality norms. They have segregation between A, B, C, D, all the quality norms. Otherwise, it will be very difficult to export. Indian pharma industry very much presence in Hyderabad. You have Matrix, that is Mylan Laboratories now, Natco, Reddy's, Newland, so many companies in and around Hyderabad. You have growth rate, that is global growth rate to the extent of 8 to 9%, Indian growth rate to the extent of 16%. And domestic industry, the total turnover is around 63,000 crores, and out of this, marketing will go up to 7%, that is around 4,300 crores. You know, the pharma industry is mainly driven by the doctors and their prescription. And the targets of the pharma companies are the doctors. Why? Because if you take 4,300 crores divided by 7 lakh doctors available in India, each doctor is getting an incentive of 2,50,000 per annum. So you can imagine how they are taken care of. And you have mostly the Indian pharma industry is taking care of the medicines for lifestyle related diseases like stress, diabetes and BP, whatever it is. And you have contract research and manufacturing services because of outsourcing from the advanced economies. Here I can say US, UK, Japan, they have recognized increase in the healthcare costs. That's why they want to go for reduction. Obama is facing the heat in the recent elections also. What I am saying is they are going for generics instead of the branded goods. Brand means, suppose you have to pay 100 rupees, generic is just 5 rupees. You can say that 95% reduction just because of the generic. Generic is, it doesn't have any brand. Growing dissidence, that's what I am telling. But in India, I am sorry to say that R&D expenditure is low because we are mostly copycats. We are not innovators. Just 1.9%. Dr. Reddy's, Ranbaxy may be having this much of R&D, not much. They should increase. They will be having around 5 to 6%. Other companies are very low. That's why it's 1.9. Next. Yeah, Indian steel industry is also facing very rough weather because of rupee depreciation, 20% depreciation. Their major raw material is iron ore and coke. You know, we are having very good amount of iron ore, but coal also. But we are not having the quality iron ore as well as coal. So that's the reason we have to import. Recently, there is a suspension in Karnataka as well as Goa regarding iron ore mining. That is the reason this industry is suffering a lot. If you take JSW Steel, they are having 11 million tons plant capacity in Thoranaguru to Ballari. They are having just 2 months of inventory. They are suffering a lot because of inventory. There is a survey, that is OBICUS, order book, inventory and capacity utilization survey. All of them, order books are bulging, inventories are very huge, but capacity utilization very low. Just because we are having so many regulatory approvals. The steel industry is suffering from slowdown in China. China, if you take, they are importing huge amount of iron ore earlier, and even coal also for their infrastructure development, but they have built their infrastructure facilities for the next 100 years. They don't require any import from other countries. And though they are one of the largest producers of steel in Asia, India is also third largest in Asia. They are the number 1, number 2 Japan. They are suffering, they are not importing, that's why that is also having a factor in slowdown. Next. Indian fertilizer industry, if you ask me, it was regulated till 2011. From 1st April 2011, it is deregulated to the extent of potash and then phosphate. Now urea is controlled because farmers, you know, the cost of production of 1 ton of urea is around 10,000. They are getting around 4,000 only. So 6,000 rupees subsidy. This is Indian government, because of the subsidy Raj, FFF, that is food, fuel and fertilizers and power. They are having 3% of GDP, that is equivalent to 3% of GDP as of now, that is the subsidy bill. The government's immediate agenda is to reduce it to 2% or 1.5%. Here it is very capital intensive, and it is also importing huge amount of potash and phosphate because India is not gifted with this raw material sourcing. And natural gas also we also not have that much. That's the reason it's suffering. Next. Yeah, I need not tell you much about information technology. All of you are nearby high-tech city. But still, information technology is one of the major industries in India which is generating a lot of revenue for the country. I have put it cognizant of Accenture, though they don't belong to India. But I just want to tell you, as far as industry, this industry is concerned, whether it is foreign company or Indian company, doesn't matter, because most of our Indians will work in foreign country, foreign people will work in India. And here, when it comes to the financing, most of the IT companies are cash rich or cash starved. That means that's the reason I'm telling you, SME, when they are in small position, we have to identify their key strengths and finance, then they will not leave. Infosys, it was a startup in 1981. It was banking with State Bank of Mysore, and later it has grown manifold, and it has taken by a bank also. And the profitability levels is 20 to 25% in this industry. If it is less than that, it will be very difficult. We should not, we should be very careful. And when it comes to the pharma industry backslide, it will be around 15% profitability. If it is less than that, as bankers, we should think about it. Here, attrition levels, you know, and IT-enabled services, it is the profitability less here because they are not having that much valuation. Hospitality industry is also one of the industries which is attracting very good foreign exchange. You know, Atiti Devo Bhava, Satyameva Jayate. That is the Incredible India campaign. What I am saying is, this particular awareness among our citizens is very low. We are not treating our fellow travelers we should treat them as attendees. So that's the reason most of the people can come and visit India. But if we don't treat them properly, like a cab driver and a taxi driver, or even in a lift in an airport, or escalators. What I'm saying is there was an accident in Delhi in 1984 or 90s escalator that gave very wrong signals. And even recently Bangalore, we see the SMS, because of SMS so many people have gone, that is exodus of Northeast people from Bangalore or even Chennai to their respective places. So what I'm saying is, this particular industry requires certain things, soft skills, and we should place them. Average room rentals, they are declining. Earlier it was around 7,000 rupees per suit in Taj Krishna 5-star. Now it has come down to maybe some 8,000 to 8,000. And here we are having biodiversity convention. One of my friends is telling that Government of India sanctioned 300 crores during the last week for this biodiversity convention. Hyderabad is treated as MIC, they have got 2012 MIC award, that is meetings, incentives, conferences and exhibitions award for 2012. Of course, terrorism and political instability. Yeah, this is the major share of corporate finance. Indian banking industry, if you see that around 50% of the finance is going here. During the last 10 years, that particular industry finance has increased from 3% to 13% of the total advances. Most of the infrastructure companies are based in Hyderabad. That is the reason I want to cover this. This is the last industry, please bear with me. Negative cash flows, low returns, and then high leverage. Right? Yeah, you have time and cost overruns to take and come in. JP Infratech completed Yamuna Express Highway recently, 165 kilometers express highway. It took for 10 years 12,000 crores. This type of national asset, it's not easy to come up. Initially it was estimated 3,000 crores and just 4-5 years. See, finally it came up with 12 years and 10,000 crores. So what I'm saying is, one infrastructure company entrepreneur I was speaking, most of the infrastructure companies are having time and cost overruns. If they complete to the extent of 80 to 90%, it is fine. But if they don't complete, it will be just like it cannot create any value. Like irigupoyina naku mukka, Telugu if I say Telugu, irigupoyina nagaru mukka, tunataniki panchedu, poilu patti panchedu. What I am saying is, it should be completed, then only it will be useful. Whether bank is going to be repaid or not, it's a different story. It should be remaining as a national asset.